Tolop was dating a girl and he had found out the girl was cheating on him with another guy. So they broke up and he went to talk to the other guy's girlfriend, Spincess. Tolop found her sitting alone in the library. Tolop went up to her and said, "Hey, your boyfriend is cheating on you. You might want to talk to him about this." She replied by saying, "You are a dick. He would never do something like this to me. You need to stay out of other people's business." She eventually found out the truth and they broke up. From there, one thing led to another, and 7 years later, the two of them are married with a baby.
One time, McKylum's roommate Gergak ordered a package. When it arrived, the delivery woman asked him to sign for it. He said, "Sorry, I forgot my pen." She said that she had a pen, but Gergak said, "No, that's your pen. I'll get my pen." So he ran to his office, ripped the drawer out of his desk, and grabbed his pen. He said, "Sorry about that." He signed for the package, and the delivery woman gave it to him. Then he said, "I'm really sorry. I get nervous around hot people, so, wanna hang out?" The delivery woman ran to her car and left, leaving Gergak at the door mumbling, "Was it something I said?" Later that month, McKylum and Gergak heard that the delivery woman quit her job. When Snoopy was in 6th grade, she was dating a guy online. He knew she was in 6th grade, but it was a few months before he told her that he was a college student in Canada. Snoopy quickly ended the relationship, but a few days later, Snoopy got a letter in the mail telling her to get back together with him or he'd hurt her or worse. Snoopy started texting him again, but she used Snapchat so she could see where he lived. It turned out he lived right across the street from her, and he was in 8th grade, not college. She called him out for it at school, and he responded by hugging her and kissing her cheek. Then he whispered into her ear, "You're my rabbit to bear." Snoopy was majorly creeped out, but she doesn't see him anymore. The worst way Doopy found out that she no longer had a boyfriend was during 6th grade camp. The week-long camping trip was going well. Doopy felt like she was in love with her boyfriend, and they were having a lot of fun. One night, all 48 students were sitting around a campfire telling ghost stories. When it came to Doopy's boyfriend's turn, he told a story about a sad girl who thought she was dating a guy, but it turns out he was just pranking her. Then he told everyone in the camp that the girl was Doopy! Everyone laughed, except for Doopy, of course. Kids are kinda mean.
Helbin is a very lazy employee who likes taking frequent toilet breaks to screw around on his phone. One time, Helbin visited the restroom for the 10th time that shift. This time he actually needed to pee, so he stood in front of the urinal and went to town. When he finished, he zipped his pants up and squealed in pain. He looked down and saw the skin of his testicles had gotten caught in his zipper. He tried for 5 minutes to unzip it, but it refused to budge. Eventually, after a lot of force and a lot of pain, he finally got it unstuck. Needless to say, Helbin was very sore down there for the rest of his shift. Yo, that is probably one of my biggest fears.
One time, Melissa... Hey Melissa, what's up? One time Melissa and her friends were playing Pokemon on the Nintendo DS's at school. Suddenly, this weird kid came up to Melissa and asked if he could look at her Pokemon. Melissa handed him her DS and went on having a conversation with somebody else. When the weirdo gave back her DS, he had renamed each Pokemon in her party so that their names spelled something out. The message said, "Will you go out with me?" Melissa cringed so hard she nearly died. She had literally spoken to him only twice ever. And I mean, come on guys, there's no way the guy was as handsome as me, so it's not like he ever had a chance.
Doopy's mom was always on the phone every time she walked past her. Being 6 and wanting her mom's attention, Doopy went to her room to think of a plan to get it. The next day, she came up with one. She walked into the kitchen while her mom was on the phone and grabbed a knife. She made a little cut on her arm, sat on the floor, and cried. Her mom hung up the phone without even saying goodbye. She picked up Doopy from the floor and carried her to the bathroom. While walking to the bathroom, Doopy looked at her mom and let out an evil laugh. She was quite the little demon.
Emoji used to write a lot of fanfic in high school. She always had a notebook and pen and was always jotting things down. One day, she was sitting in Catholic studies writing hot anime boy-on-boy action, as you do, for pretty much the whole class. That year, her teacher put on her report card that she had really good homework habits because she was always working on something. Emoji's mum read the report and said, "Wait, Good homework habits? You? That's when Emoji realized she got marked up for good homework habits because she was writing gay porn in class.
When I was about 7 or 8, one night I woke up suddenly, hearing strange breathing noises coming from just outside my window. We had possums on the property, so that wasn't unusual, but I had a weird feeling drawing me towards it. I went and had a look, and through the darkness of the night, I saw an indiscernible figure with what seemed like mutilated features standing about 10 meters away and staring straight at me. I ducked down to hide, not knowing what else to do, and waited there for a few minutes. I knew when I stood up that he'd be waiting just outside the window, so I panicked. Eventually I looked, and when I did, nothing was there. But it wasn't the last time I encountered this shadowy character.
The dumbest lie Mimi ever tried getting away with was when she was in elementary school. She tried to convince people that she was born in outer space. Everyone Mimi told that lie to loved the idea. One kid in her class loved it so much that he built a rocket ship out of Legos, and at recess pointed at Mimi and said, "She's from Mars," before jumping off a tire swing to get there. However, Mimi felt bad when the kid broke his arm. He also landed on his Lego rocket ship and cut that same arm.
The dumbest excuse Robo ever heard came from her friend. It was when Robo turned 11 and she wanted to have a party and invite all of her friends over. She especially wanted to make sure to invite her 2 best friends. However, one of them texted Robo saying, "Sorry, I have to wash my goldfish. Sorry, girl." Even worse, that was the only time Robo was allowed to invite any of her friends over. She nearly cried and to this day rarely talks about that alleged friend. When Gergak was in the 7th grade, he went to a friend's bonfire party. His friend lived on a big farm and late into the night, they decided to check out an abandoned farmhouse. As they were walking around telling each other scary stories, a man appeared out of nowhere. He asked them if they wanted to pet his dog. They said sure, and they followed the old man to his house where he started digging. They stood there confused until the man bent over and he pulled out the corpse of a dead dog. Gergak turned around and ran until he could no longer hear the old man yelling, come back and pet my dog." It was a pretty sad night, to be honest. I went through all that trouble to dig up my dog and they wouldn't even pet it. Those little rotten kids.
After Hurricane Sandy, Ursa took some family and friends out to get some food. The electricity was out almost everywhere, so they didn't expect the supermarket to be open, and it wasn't. In the same strip with the supermarket was a CVS. While they were parked in the parking lot, all of a sudden they saw an employee walk out of the CVS and just start dancing like crazy in the entrance. The guy was flailing around with some pretty weird dance moves, so he clearly didn't think anybody was watching him. Soon he spotted Ursa and realized she was not only watching but recording him on her phone. He immediately froze and ran back into the store. She still has the video. Hey, post that on the subreddit, I want to see it.
Honeybit sees plenty of bratty kids at the arts and crafts shop where she works. But the brattiest one of them was a 10-year-old fat kid who came in with his mom. The whole time they were shopping, the boy was barking at his mom. He pointed out every single thing he wanted and would throw a fit if she opened her mouth at all. When they got to the register, he grabbed a handful of Snickers bars and said, "I'm getting these." When his mom timidly told him no, he went into a rampage. He started swearing at her, insulting her, and even told her she should kill herself. The mother eventually just sighed and passed Honeybits the Snickers so she could ring them up. Even though the mother bought everything he wanted, the son continued to abuse her all the way to their car. Although Honeybits detests violence, she was getting a real urge to strangle that brat.
One day, Gooby was walking home from school when she went down a creepy alley, which was part of her usual routine. Then, out of nowhere, a man appeared and whispered in her ear, "You taste nice, especially in bed. See you tonight." Then, he licked Gooby's hair before pulling some out. Since that day, Gooby never even looked down that alley.
Tulup's younger brother has an appetite for really gross things. If he isn't busy digging deep inside of his nose for boogers to eat, he's usually eating all sorts of weird things like ice cubes straight from the freezer, fingernails and toenails, and he even chews on some soft toys. He's 11 years old, and the only thing left of his favorite teddy bear is the head, because he ate the rest of it. But the strangest part is he can't stand the taste of normal things like cereals or crisps. One night, Hellbent was walking home when he saw one of his neighbors was having a party. This neighbor lived in a very small trailer, but that wasn't stopping them from throwing one of the biggest parties Hellbent had ever seen. In fact, as Hellbent was walking by, the neighbor ran outside and invited him in as if they knew him. Hellbent said,
Alright, fuck it.
and went inside. The trailer was packed with people, and it was being crammed with even more. Hellbent helped himself to some beer and watched as a tiny midget lady climbed onto the dining room table and did a striptease.
You know, on that table, you look like you're taller than I am.
It was by far the weirdest thing he had ever seen on his street.
When MKLM was in the 12th grade, he broke up with his girlfriend because he found out she cheated on him. But MKLM's ex didn't want to let him go and followed him everywhere trying to win him back. One day, she got so desperate that she cornered him in a quiet hallway at school and demanded he take her back. When MKLM refused, she stuck her hand down her pants and tried to seduce him. She started masturbating and moaning really loudly as other students walked by. MKLM stood there and watched the whole thing. When it was over, she smiled and said, "So, are we back together now?" MKLM said, "No way, but thanks for the show." Then he walked away and never spoke to her again.
Froggy was at the mall with her family and they saw a couple walking out of a store. Froggy's dad walked up to the couple, pointed at Froggy and her sister and said,
This, folks, is why you buy high-quality condoms.
Froggy was incredibly embarrassed. The couple said they already knew. Froggy's mum could not stop laughing. Then her dad said,
Just warning you.
After that, they headed to the food court, not even discussing it.
When Sweet Commando was 13, he went to Jamaica with his family. But this in-the-sun vacation quickly turned into a living nightmare. It started when his family suggested going snorkeling in the reef. Sweet Commando had never snorkeled before, but he picked it up pretty quickly and was having an awesome time, until he spotted something terrifying down below. A human corpse that had been impaled by a big piece of coral. The corpse's eyes were wide open in terror, and its mouth was full of flesh-ripping teeth. As Sweet Commando tried to swim away, the corpse reached out to grab him. After screaming and blinking several times, Sweet Commando realized the corpse had disappeared. Sweet Commando had visions of the decaying corpse every night of the trip.
Mimi Up was the host at an IHOP. One night around 1 a.m., a drunken man and his friends walked in. When Mimi told them to follow her to her table, the man replied,
I'll follow you anywhere, baby.
Mimi shrugged it off and sat them at the table. Soon after, the man turned and asked if Mimi was a virgin. She politely told him it was none of his business. To this, his response was,
If you are, you're not going to be when I'm done with you.
Then he drank the strawberry syrup and took all of the rolled silverware outside and hid them like an Easter egg hunt. They were still finding silverware 2 weeks later.
One time when Gooby was 12, she needed help with her math homework, and the only two people that were home were her mom and sister. Her sister wasn't in the room, but her mom was, so she asked her. Gooby sat there repeatedly asking for help, but her mom refused to even notice her. When her sister yelled from the house for her, Gooby's mom went to find her sister to help with whatever she needed help with. She ended up failing that assignment, and it caused her to fail the whole class. The worst part was her mom even grounded her for failing.
Lechner once got a detention for walking into class 2 seconds after the bell finished ringing. His teacher said he was disrupting class when in all actuality the lesson hadn't even started. Then because of the detention he was late to a band sectional and then got given another detention. So he got a detention because he was late, then another detention because he was late due to his first detention. It was a great first-class school.
Once, when Pringle was about 10, he was walking home from basketball practice, and this man in a white truck with cop lights but no sheriff sticker kept trying to get him into his truck. Pringle didn't want him to find out where he lived, so he had to walk around town. Eventually, Pringle did manage to get him off his tail, and he called the police. A week and a half later, Pringle found out that the man was planning on killing his entire family that night.
James Sharp was 19 when he graduated from Navy basic training. So he and a friend went out to a nightclub to celebrate before going to their next duty station. At the club, James Shark met a cool woman who said, "I like semen." James Shark and his friend laughed, having a good time. Then she sat on his lap, intently stared into his eyes, and said, "You are so handsome that I just want to cut off your face and wear it." At that point, James Shark said he had to go, and he and his friend left to their next duty station without looking back.
When Spinal Palm was very young, he went to his best friend's birthday party. They had been eating candy all day, so they were super hyperactive. Suddenly, everyone started sword fighting with sticks that they found on the ground. Spinal Palm's best friend picked up a stick and he threw it straight into his eye. He was screaming, splinters were lodged in his eyeball, and the pain was unbearable. After he managed to pull them out and calm down, Spinal Palm's best friend told him he couldn't sit with her anymore because he cried. And that was the day that they were no longer best friends.
Nixium's neighbors were very annoying when he was young. He always thought that they were out to get him, but he had no proof. Then one day, while he was sitting in his lounge room, the kids from next door burst through his front door wielding some kind of poles. By some coincidence, Nixium found a pole sitting right next to him and embarked on an epic pole fight. Unfortunately, the neighbor was a year older than him and he ended up losing the Great Pole War. After that day, his neighbor became his arch nemesis, although they never did get to have a rematch.
When Pringle was 14, he and a girl liked each other. He walked straight up to her and asked her out. He meant to say,
"Hello, you are beautiful. I love your brown eyes. Your style is so great that you must be rich and have maids. So do you want to go out?"
Instead, he was so nervous that he said while talking fast,
"Hello, you are beautiful. I love your brown eyes. Your style is so great that you must be rich and have AIDS. So do you want to go out?"
She immediately said no. Pringle tried to explain, but she said, "Fuck off, you cunt!" He took the rejection pretty well and moved on. Until 2 years later, when she dated his brother.
So when Pringle was in school, he was sitting in class when the bell rang. For some reason, he stayed in the classroom for a while before heading downstairs. As he was walking down the stairs, he suddenly got a random erection. Instead of ignoring it, Pringle just whipped it out and continued walking down the stairs. When he turned a corner, he found himself face to face with the principal, his teacher, his crush, and her mother. And the rest of his fucking class. He was suspended for a week.
One time, Pandora was at a local park, sitting on a bench when a little girl and her father came up. While the father was on his phone, the little girl came up to her and said, "Hey lady." Pandora said,
Huh?
being the antisocial small children hater that she is. "You're really pretty," the girl proceeded to say.
Thanks?
Pandora replied. Just then, the girl poked Pandora's boobs a few times and said, "My mummy has some of these, but they're smaller." Pandora was so shocked the little girl said that. As the little girl walked away with her father, she said, "Bye, strange lady."
When Pringle was working self-checkout at a grocery store, a woman asked for some help with a sale that just wasn't working. It was a buy one get one free box of some generic cereal, who cares? Now after looking through her purchases, he pointed out that she only had one box. She earnestly replied that she had bought the other box on a previous trip.
When Nixium was in 7th grade, he had a scar under his chin, which was almost instantly noticed. One day, his friend asked him why he had the scar. Since he didn't want them to know that his cousins pushed him down the stairs for who knows what reason, Nixium told them with a straight face,
"Yeah, my uncle did it to me. He didn't like me very much."
His friend was nosy, and so he asked why he did it to him. Nixium said,
"He never really liked me. One day as he was chopping wood, I guess I did something wrong, and so he swung at me and he broke my chin."
His friend gasped. Liking what he had done, Nixium kept going with it after a while. His friend told almost the whole school. One day, Nixium acted sad and depressed. When asked why he was so sad, he said,
"Well, you know that uncle that did this? Well, he got out of prison today, and when someone went to pick him up, he wasn't there. So they think he's coming out to find me."
All his friends got really worried, and it still goes on today. Mimi used to take the city bus to and from school. One day, it started raining while walking to the bus stop. So by the time Mimi got onto the bus, she was soaking wet and the bus was full. Mimi ended up standing in the middle of the bus, sandwiched between people until a guy moved all the way across the bus to stand in front of her and deliberately press his chest against hers. Mimi tried backing up, but the man leaned closer and whispered in her ear, "If you say anything, I'll be wearing your skin home instead of my jacket." Then he licked Mimi's ear and got off the bus. Later that day, Mimi washed herself for like an hour in the shower.
One time, Andy went on a hot date with a guy. It went so well that they ended up back at his place. They went up to his room, closed the door, and started having sex. The guy had told Andy he had a roommate, but assured her he wouldn't bother them. The sex was great, and Andy was getting very carried away. While she was mid-orgasm, she heard the door to the room suddenly open and close again. It was the roommate. When they finished, they went downstairs, and Andy had to awkwardly meet this person who had walked in on them. The roommate said he didn't see anything and apologized for coming in without knocking. Apparently he'd heard Andy's screams of pleasure and thought they were watching a crazy anime. Andy was super embarrassed.
I've talked about this on my own YouTube channel, shameless self-promo, but this was one of the sweetest things one of my siblings has ever done for me. When I was in 7th grade, I was very sad that I couldn't get a Valentine. Every year I wouldn't get a single one, and it made me feel really insecure and sad. So, being the dumb dramatic kid I was, I changed my MySpace profile name to say, Miss Never Gets a Valentine, in hopes somebody would see it and maybe give me a Valentine. On Valentine's Day, I waited all day and didn't get a single one until I got home when my mom gave me a card that was in the mailbox. It was a Valentine's Day card from a secret admirer, and I lost it. I was so excited because this was the first Valentine's I'd ever gotten, and I was wondering who it could possibly be. It turned out to be my brother, which disappointed me at the time, but I was also really happy that at least somebody thought of me on Valentine's Day.
Once in 5th grade, Ghost Toast had a geology class with a girl he had a big ol' crush on. The teacher paired the students up, and Ghost Toast, oh yeah, he was paired up with his crush. So he was really excited. Everyone was then handed shovels and was told to dig for rocks. And Ghost Host's partner said that he should use the shovel because, you know, he's the stronger one. She then handed him the shovel, and he looked her straight in the eye and said, "This is groundbreaking." Everyone stopped and stared at him, and literally nobody laughed. For the rest of the day, he was given the nickname Digger.
In English class, Sid had his MacBook Air computer out and was playing with it when the teacher noticed. She told him to get his binder so she could write a note to his parents. As he was getting his binder from his bag, she told him that he was getting detention during lunch break. He looked at her and asked her what she did. She told him that he had rolled his eyes at her, which was something he didn't do. The next day, the teacher asked Sid what his parents had said. He told her that his parents thought that it was very ridiculous of her to punish him for something like that, and to think next time.
When he was at the fair with some friends one day, Legna was told by one of them, "Hey, I'll give you $20 if you ask that girl for her number." Legna looked at the girl, Ladybot, who appeared to be much older than him. He agreed, went up to her, and said,
"Hey, you're cute. Could I, get your number?"
Ladybot just looked at him and replied,
"You're cute and all, but I'm a lesbian."
Legna was stunned and she walked away. He stood there while his friends gathered around and yelled, "Oh my god, I can't believe you did that!" They still gave him the $20. A few minutes later, a man who appeared to be the same age as Ladybot walked up to Legna and said, "Bro, you got guts asking my sister for her number." After saying that, the man gave him $10. I mean, hey, he got $30 out of it.
Gooby had a customer call her store saying that the fruit juice that they had sold was bad. Her friend took the call and asked for more details. He said he bought the fruit juice for his daughter's birthday party, and that it tasted bitter, and that one kid even got a sick stomach. It turns out it wasn't expired, or a faulty product, or anything like that. The guy had bought something called Fabuloso, a type of floor cleaner. Ew. Gooby's friend told him to call poison control right away. The next thing Gooby's friend heard was the phone being put down and,
"Oh fuck! Babe! Get the juice away from the kids! Right the fuck now!"
Then the man picked up the phone and simply said, I gotta go. Bye.